Welcome, everybody, to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Taylor Rockwell. Happy Saturday to you all. We are all up bright and early to get this one recorded, to do some listener question answering. Graham Ruthven, what was the cereal of choice this Saturday morning before you watched, I'm assuming, 4 hours of cartoons and then 35 hours of soccer?
And that's A-League on Saturday morning. That's what I tune into.
You're
I
a
actually
poor child.
haven't had breakfast this morning. Yes, definitely recording on Saturday.
Yep.
Because I'm doing hospitality at Stirling Albion, so I'll be tanning the beers at 11 a.m. just to get through the Stirling Albion match that I'll watch at 3 p.m.
Does that mean you are working, or does that mean that you are attending like a free beer giveaway?
No, I'm just having like a meal and having a drink at the game. I'm definitely not working. This is my few hours off of the year, actually, the whole year. Yeah.
First of all, I believe that. Second of all, Joe, when you hear when you hear Graham say he is doing the hospitality, do you understand what that means?
Yeah, definitely sounds like he's working. I'm picturing him in some sort of apron, maybe.
I thought he was
ushering people
pulling
to their
beers.
seats.
That's what
I don't know.
thought. Yeah.
This could be anything, really, but he's definitely working.
Hospitality, this is a concept. I've seen FIFA World Cup. I've seen Stu Holden on his Instagram punting World Cup hospitality
Yes,
packages.
Stu Holden, just like me and Taylor.
No, I'm saying the concept of
Every man
hospitality
Ruffin
is
over here.
surely not an alien one. It's like,
I think it's doing
fantasies.
hospitality, though.
Correct.
Right, there we go.
So you are going to enjoy hospitality, maybe.
Your question was, am I the one conducting the hospitality? Am I serving the beers?
Like,
Am I
because
serving
doing
the food?
implies that you are literally doing
Right,
that.
got you.
Like truly, like my the adult like amateur team that I play on, for a while like would fund their like team fees and stuff by pouring beers at kickers games. So you could like volunteer and take like a percentage of that. So I truly thought like as a like fan-owned small club, is it like every like one weekend a year you have to be the one who pours the beers?
No,
like,
no.
We're National
fans.
Guard
One for
style.
you, two for me.
We are a fan-owned club, but thankfully it's not quite that extreme. No, once a season I do hospitality at Stirling Albion, so this is my once a season. Go to hospitality,
Which means
not
that
do
you
hospitality.
relax. Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Joe Lowery, that was a long way of getting to you. What breakfast cereal have you had that Graham hasn't had?
You know, I've been
Also
more of a. My wife will make granola at home. So we'll just like, I don't know, there's delicious oats and coconut and brown sugar and yumminess in there. And that with milk hits the spot. So it's not quite an answer to your question, but I think it's pretty close. I'm happy with it.
Joe, are you a health person now? Is that what I'm
No.
hearing? That feels like a very healthy answer to my question.
No, not at, I mean,
How much protein? Is
zero. Basically zero. I mean, I don't think there's a lot in those grains and whatever else is in there.
But when you get your creatine in there.
Yeah, exactly. When I say 4 scoops of protein powder on there, it has the protein in it. But without that, no.
Oh, Joe just downing protein powder is
Get ready
a
this
sign I'm
summer.
excited to see this summer. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Joe's going to turn up like one of those guys. He's going to have the tan, like basically like a different ethnicity.
I think unfortunately I am gonna have to fly instead of drive, with like I initially planned, and so I'm gonna have to get the protein powder when I'm there. But it'll be worth it.
Just a checked bag full of just loose protein powder.
No,
Joe
guys,
Lowery.
it's just protein
What could
powder.
go
It's
wrong?
not. Stop. Why did you
Just
say
heading to
that?
Muscle Beach, guys. Don't worry. It's just part of the kit.
While we contemplate a muscle-bound Mr. Lowry, let's also
You
contemplate some
muscle-bound.
listener questions.
Excuse you.
From J.M. Frankel, with an ever-expanding World Cup, the Confederation rotation requirement for hosting, and the logistical gymnastics that resulted in Saudi Arabia getting the 2034 tournament, is it considered a pretty much foregone conclusion that the 2038 tournament will end up back in America? I will say it was not a foregone conclusion to me because I have not thought this far ahead, but for you two, our resident planners, our resident forward thinkers, I'm wondering if you all have thoughts on this one. Let's start with Joe, who won't be doing the hospitality this weekend, but will be roiding out and lifting in his front driveway, I believe.
Yeah, it's man, you have an uncanny grasp of what my day is going to look like. That's shocking. I will say there's not a lot of clarity on the bid eligibility rules these days, as far as I could find it. Now there has a shocker.
Very generously, yes.
Yeah, stop me if that surprises you. Which I think leads to some credence to this overall question. By the way,
Where
at the
does
moment,
Gianni Infantino own a house? That's the next World Cup. Yeah.
Ooh, today I feel America. At the moment, it looks like countries from the Confederation that hosted either of the previous 2 World Cups, or those confederations themselves, really, are ineligible to bid on the next one. So I think that is sort of the framework that FIFA's been operating in. Infantino's come out and talked about that, basically, and said that, okay, these confederations can't host this one because they did one of the last two. And so when you go through and do process of elimination, like I assume J.M. Frankel has done for this question, it leaves you to either CONCACAF or Oceania, right? So in 2030, so if we're going to work backwards from 2038, in 2030, that's 2 World Cups before, that's going to be a whole bunch of different countries, right? So you have Spain, Portugal, Morocco. So then that would take UEFA and CAF, and also CONMEBOL off the board because you have Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay. Those logistical gymnastics, maybe that led to Saudi Arabia, I think that's what we're talking about here, because then you take a bunch of confederations off the board. The U.S. and North America is off the board, and so then you have, AFC, great, Saudi Arabia, this is your time.
And when you actively tell Australia, like, maybe don't bid. You don't need to bid.
Calm
bid
down
for another one down the road. That's fine.
And so then that leads you to 2038. I think either falling to CONCACAF, because then you're sort of back in the cycle after waiting your 2 World Cups, if that's even a thing by then, or Oceania. And you have Australia having been interested for the 2034 World Cup. They've been sniffing around these things. I would imagine that if there was some sort of joint, maybe Australia-New Zealand bid, which I recognize would be AFC, maybe there's a suspension there of how this all works together. But it's not easy to see a lot of alternatives besides the U.S. That's not to say it is a foregone conclusion, because FIFA play fast and loose with how all this stuff works. But I think when we saw the World Cup expand, the ways to do World Cups went down. Like, there are only so many places you can have a 48-team World Cup, only so many countries you can smush together to do this sort of thing. And so the frequency with which I expect us to see the U.S. in the rotation has skyrocketed.
Yeah, it's possibly my biggest complaint about the new World Cup format. Not necessarily that the US is going to host it more often, just that the list of potential host nations is now tiny because of this giant format and the way that the FIFA rules are. I totally agree, Joe. It feels like FIFA could just make it up on the spot. They have this sort of 2-cycle rule at the moment. They have done enough gymnastics to get, or logistical gymnastics to get Saudi Arabia the World Cup in 2034 that I believe they could just make it up again for 2038. However, I did see it reported by The Athletic a few months ago that New Zealand are exploring the possibility of co-hosting with the USA, so that they cover both OFC and...
Let's not do that, maybe.
This is the way that the World Cup is going to be, man. As long as it's in this format, and as long as, 2030 is covering, 6 different nations over 3 different confederations. We've got Spain in, the Northern Hemisphere hosting with Argentina in the Southern Hemisphere, or Paraguay or Uruguay or whoever in the Southern Hemisphere. So this sort of thing is going to happen more often, and so I guess New Zealand in this format, or even in the previous format, to be perfectly honest, would never really be able to host a World Cup. But they have 3, possibly 4 stadiums at a stretch. They could partner up with another nation like the US. I guess a better geographical solution would be Australia, right, who have been desperate to host a World Cup for a long time. So maybe they just fudge the rules a little bit and we have an Australia-New Zealand World Cup in 2038, which... To be honest, would anyone really begrudge them that? Would anyone in CONCACAF go, hold on, it's our turn, considering the US, Canada and Mexico have just hosted one in 2026? I kind of feel like I would put the money on Australia and New Zealand for 38.
Yeah, we would have hosted 2 before Australia got the 1 for us having professional leagues that started up around the same time. I do sort of feel like they might just sort of hand wave things in regards to 2030 because of that weird conglomeration and because it was ultimately...
Seems possible.
It seems likely to me, yes, it is very convenient in how they were sort of rigged this into being well, now it has to be a team from the AFC, Saudi Arabia 2034. But I think, what I assumed was that FIFA wanted it to be Spain, Portugal, Morocco, South America, CONMEBOL wanting it to be the 100th anniversary, wanting to celebrate the first World Cup being in South America. And I think there was, some credit given to that. So it doesn't feel quite as intentional, even if it worked out very well in their sort of calculations, FIFA. I feel like it was just kind of what they had to do to get this across the line. So I think they might end up just being let's just not count that one. 2034 was Saudi Arabia. So now, maybe what I wouldn't be surprised is if 2038 were maybe somewhere in Europe, like Italy or something, and then we go back to the United States in 2042, and then maybe South America after that, or some kind of order along those lines. But I think the biggest point that you all have made that I fully agree with and I think is really kind of interesting long term is just that with the expanded tournament, you just need more stadiums with bigger infrastructure, and there's fewer nations that can host that many games and that many teams. It does kind of limit the pool unless we're doing whole confederations hosting tournaments, which might be a thing for the future.
If we're completely disregarding rules, which it feels like FIFA might do for 38, having made them up until this point, surely CONMEBOL is in play to host 2038 because they are obviously lobbying, as we've spoken on the show about before, they're lobbying for a further expansion of that 2030 tournament because they feel put out slightly that tournament isn't going to be purely a CONMEBOL competition. And so I can envisage if there's a scenario where FIFA talks them down off the ledge and says, okay, well, we're not going to expand the tournament to, 64 teams they want or something, or 62 teams for that World Cup, which just does not seem viable in any way. They talk them off the ledge and kind of make the sort of secret, unwritten promise to them that they'll end up getting 2038. I can see that happening as well.
I'm excited to have more teams. I think it'll be fun. I think it will give us more unpredictable results. I'm still just like 32 was fine. 32 was really fine. It was a good number. You missed some big nations. You had qualifying drama. It really made sense in a simple format, and it did leave it possible that it didn't have to be co-hosts or gigantic countries with huge media markets and or huge oil reserves that could possibly host. But here we are. So, Saudi Arabia 2034, somewhere South America, 2038, Europe 2042, USA 2046.
I think the takeaway here is that it is not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
To answer the question, I will say it seems very possible to me that it ends up back in the U.S. and either U.S. only or some sort of North America bid, and we just do this again. But I would not say it is maybe the most likely option.
All right. We're going to consider that one asked and also answered. We've got another World Cup question that is a slight downer to get to. We'll get to that momentarily. Welcome back, everybody. We are still answering your listener questions. Graham is still out there volunteering for the community. Graham,
Thanks,
what are you
Graham.
doing now? You carrying hot dogs in the stands? That's very nice of you.
That's right. I wish I could score some goals for the team on the pitch, but I'm not even good enough for that level. Scottish
Sounds
League
like maybe
2 level.
you could. Sounds like maybe you
possibly.
could.
We don't know until we try. That's my argument.
Exactly. Well, we have a question from Richard Rolson who asks, what happens if Iran chooses not to come to the United States for the World Cup? That does seem increasingly likely or very likely. The country's sports minister, Ahmad Donyamali, said Wednesday, not today at time of recording, said earlier in the week basically that it's impossible for them to go, considering that this corrupt regime, meaning the United States, has assassinated our leader. Under no circumstances can we participate in the World Cup. So that's a pretty firm we won't be there. It's not a soft RSVPing no. It's a pretty strong statement of we will not be there. That could be posturing. Time could change things. Who knows? But for now, it does beg that question. Graham, what happens if Iran chooses not to come? I think we've kind of answered this at points recently with the gist being we're not sure because there isn't really one set approach for how to handle this.
Yeah, so Taylor, you and I did a whole 101 episode last week on the subject of World Cup disruptions, and part of that discussion was on the Iran situation and what happens if they withdraw from the tournament and some of the historical precedent for that. Basically, the TLDR, as we're recording, while accepting that this is a fast-moving situation, and by the time you listen to this, Gianni Infantino might have come out and explained how they're going to replace Iran in this tournament. But right
It's
now,
an all-star team.
it's Inter Miami. The TLDR on what happens if Iran, as you say, Taylor, decide not to play at this World Cup, as seems to be the case. FIFA can choose. They have a lot of license to choose how to replace them. The wording on teams withdrawing is quite vague. So according to Article 6.7 of the World Cup regulations, FIFA shall decide on the matter at its sole discretion and take whatever action is deemed necessary. FIFA may decide to replace the participating member association in question with another association, which basically says nothing at all and leaves it open to FIFA to make it up as they go along, which is what we saw at the Club World Cup last year with the Lyon situation. So with that kind of playoff they contrived between Club America and LAFC.
What was the justification there? There was like a somewhat valid justification, wasn't there? Even if it was a bit.
So LAFC was it not the two beaten finalists of? So obviously from the CONCACAF Champions Cup, like the team that won that competition qualified, and I think they took like the two beaten finalists. LAFC had made a final, and maybe Club America had as well.
That sounds familiar.
and then put them against each other, and the winner made it through to the tournament. As I say, they just kind of made it up as they went along, which with a new tournament they had license to do. Slightly surprised that there isn't a more formalised protocol here for the World Cup. I guess the easiest thing to do would be to go to the AFC playoff and work it out from that route, which I think involves Iraq and the UAE. But there is absolutely
Iraq are still alive in the intercontinental, interconfederation playoff. So they could still qualify themselves, but then if they were to lose that one, they would be the next best AFC team, yeah.
But the thing I've seen speculated would be, so Iraq beat UAE in that final, right, to make it to the intercontinental playoff. I think there was a playoff before the playoff. So I guess what you could do is you could get Iraq to replace Iran in the tournament itself because they won that game, and then put the UAE through to the intercontinental playoff.
Those games are in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, exactly. Those games. That's literally what I was just going to say. Those games are in Mexico as things stands. That's another discussion around those games. And at the end of this month, so they need to make a quick decision if that's the route they're going to go down, or as we speculated last week, Taylor, maybe we're going to get the FIFA World Cup Chaos Competition Playoff sponsored by Crypto.com, hosted in Saudi Arabia. Maybe that's the way we're going to go.
Yeah, I feel like with like the 4 best coefficient ranked teams having to play a playoff, and then like the ones who didn't qualify. I also have a sinking feeling, Joe, that like we come out of this with Infantino being like, I should be allowed to just pick teams, and we end up getting like the commissioner's picks for All-Star Game, where Infantino just gets to pick 2 nations that he's decided should be at the World Cup for no reason. Don't pay attention to the giant money bags that I'm holding in each hand as I announce these member states. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that. I would be surprised, but I wouldn't fully hate, like, truly like an all-star team of players that did not qualify if their nations didn't qualify.
I mean, that's definitely the most fun option, right?
Yeah, the rest of the world 11, come on.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time. I think that's a recurring sort of question. So I'm into that. The commissioner's idea scares me, not just for the obvious reasons, but that whenever MLS does it and Don Garber, he's not picking those players. Whenever Don Garber's players come out for the All-Star game, it's always the CF Montreal player because they never get voted in. It's like a French-Canadian representative, and that's what I don't want to happen. I don't want Gianni getting too cute and saying, you know who we're missing? Oh, we absolutely need to get Georgia in this tournament. And you're like, well, no, we really didn't need that. No, we need Georgia. I don't want that. We gotta avoid the commissioner picks here.
All right,
the state or the country?
Either one, Graham, with the state of Atlanta United, either one.
Okay.
Well said. So yeah, there's no set protocol in place. It feels like there are lots of permutations we could see. I can't shake the feeling that the most likely is that because of the short window of time coinciding with this announcement is that they will maybe hold off making any sort of decision until these playoffs are done. And then if Iran truly does pull out, it will be the next, like, the best coefficiently ranked or best team in the coefficient rankings that didn't qualify. Right now, I think that would be Italy, who haven't qualified directly. I think they're 13th in the FIFA World Rankings. So I just wouldn't be surprised if it's that level of we just got to get somebody in, time's a wasting. Maybe they will try to do like I don't know, does that cheapen the opening ceremony if you have like a play-in game a day before the World Cup actually begins, Graham?
Yes, I think it does.
Right?
Preserve the sanctity of the opening ceremony at all costs.
Hey.
Of course, at all costs.
I asked that question to Graham specifically, Joe.
Well played.
Thank you very much.
And Joe answered it for me.
He did. All right, so the answer is we're not sure what happens if Iran chooses not to come, which it seems like they won't, but there are lots of kind of possibilities in place should that end up happening, which ultimately ends with, I don't know, Saudi Arabia getting a second team.
This all just sucks so much.
It really does. It really does. It really does. But you know what, Joe? As I said to you, I think off air on Tuesday, you're dealing with positive World Cup, Taylor. I'm tired of being sad about the World Cup. I'm tired of
that's right.
every single time someone asks me, am I excited about the World Cup, being like, sure. I want to be the guy who's like, yes, it's going to be great. Don't ask any more questions. And that's what I'm going to be. So, yay, Tim Ream hoisting the World Cup and hosting it at the same time. Let's move to Stu, who asks or says, please rank the top 6 in the Premier League in order of your preferences for them getting relegated and discuss the logic of your choices. This is a really interesting question to get without Ryan Bailey here. Because I feel like Ryan Bailey, number one, has the most historical beef against other English clubs, including just that they're from the north. But number 2, I think, is also the one most likely to be like this team, this team, this team, this team, and this team. And I feel like all 6
doesn't
of his
care.
would be, no, he does. That's what I'm, yeah. I feel like all 6 of his would be Manchester United, or they would feature at least twice on his list. So we don't have Ryan, but we do have the 3 of us to work this out. I could only get to 5. Truly. Like, I don't really have bad blood or ill will towards any team in the Premier League more than the obvious ones for the obvious reasons. So, like, Manchester City was top of my list. There's the Manchester United rivalry, obviously, and it would be funny to see them get relegated. But then also, there's just, the oil money, all the different charges outstanding, everything going on there. It cheapens the deal a little bit, and then I'm reminded, of course, that Manchester United are a quarter owned by a fracking company. So let's not get too on the high horse about oil policy.
With a racist chairman.
Oh yeah, there's that too. Yeah. Yeah, but like he just meant like we're a great club. I'm pretty sure is what his follow-up statement was. Cool, Sir Jim. He's a knight. That's a good sign, right?
Always is.
That's the chivalric order that we've come to expect from.
They do knight all the good guys, famously. Yeah, or make them princes.
Yes, and history is also written by them. So, Joe, I want to hear your list of clubs that you least care for whatever reason.
All right, so my rankings have not been conducted in that way. This has almost nothing to do with clubs that I care
but I
for
will
the
put
least.
them in that order for you. Thank you.
Manchester United probably would have been the one I relegated if I was doing it by the ones that annoy me the most, just because we talk about them all the time, and we can move on. Yeah, and also that I'm worried, Taylor. So they're not on top of my list.
They're going to be number 1 on everyone's list. I know that.
No. This is purely for my entertainment and the storylines that I think would be created by these things happening. So that's how I went about this to answer that part of Stu's question. Manchester City are also top of my list of the teams that I would most like to see go down. The only reason for that, truly, is that I want to see what Erling Haaland would do against center backs in the championship. I think he would score 1,000 goals. No way. I think he would absolutely dominate. And they play like 87 games in a league season in the Champo, so he's going to have even more chances to score a bajillion goals. It would be a sight to behold. A player of that quality in the championship, I would be in love. It would be so entertaining. So that's why I want to send Man City down. I got nothing against them really beyond all the problems. So I want to send them down first. Aston Villa is going down second. They're just the least interesting team to me of this bunch, and so it doesn't have the appeal of the Holland thing to send them down, so that's why they're not top. But I think another team is probably going to emerge as the disruptor to the hierarchy, which has sort of been their role right this season in the Premier League. Somebody else will do that in their absence, especially if we're relegating all these other teams. We don't really need an Aston Villa so much anymore. So I will send them down. I have nothing against them, but they just don't draw me in quite like some of these other teams do. Manchester United are 3 on my list because I'm bored of them. Arsenal are 4th on my list. Stodgy, nothing against it, really. I don't mind it, but I don't love it either. So let's get them down. Chelsea are in 5th. They're chaotic, so I'd prefer them, frankly, to stay over some other options, but they are not the last team on my list. The team I'd most like to keep is Liverpool, because I think this team is still so much fun. They're like kind of broken, right? But they have so many pieces and parts and bits and bobs that I really like, and I think I have the softest spot, I realized, as I was doing this exercise, for them compared to any of these other teams. So I will keep them if for Wirtz and Gakpo alone. Of course, an Ekitike, obviously, to be clear.
I just realized I misread the question, so that helps me understand your rankings a little bit more, Joe. I just had it as rank the top 6 teams in order of, that you would want to be relegated.
The 6 teams you most want to get relegated.
Yes.
I see what
That's
you mean.
I was I don't really hate any of these. I don't know. I got no beef with any of these teams. All right, now I will have to be doing some.
Honestly, that could be the right interpretation, and
I
did
think
it
yours
wrong.
is right.
But either way, I'm sticking with my guns.
I'm confused, Joe. What was the difference between Taylor and yours?
So I did the top 6 teams in the Premier League standings right now. And I ordered them in terms of my relegation desires for all of them. Taylor just picked 6 teams out of the 20 in the Premier League that he most wanted to relegate.
Joe's is
I did something slightly different to that.
Yay, all 3!
I did the traditional big 6 in the Premier League, which is basically the same as what Joe had, but swap out Aston Villa for Tottenham Hotspur. And hey, that made it easier because the way Tottenham are going, we might see it next year.
Did something happen this week? What do you mean?
All the things happened to Tottenham Hotspur. So my number 1 would also be Manchester United. Sorry, Taylor. Not for any... I absolutely do not have any hatred of Manchester United. Quite the opposite. I think of Manchester United in the same way I think of Real Madrid, where I just think football is richer and more like vibrant for having a good Manchester United. Taylor didn't love that comparison either. But the reason I would want them to go down is Manchester United still, to Joe's point, still completely dominate, at least in the UK over here, they still dominate the media agenda. All their games are picked for TV because they get the biggest audiences. All their former players are pundits. Everything makes the news. Every comment from the manager, whoever that is at the time, makes the news. I see it firsthand in page views, and like I've been in the media long enough to know Manchester United still draw more eyeballs and clicks than any other club. And so I want to see, I'm curious, as a science experiment, at what level does that stop? Like, how far down can we push Manchester United and that disappears? Because it still hasn't disappeared with them being like a mid-table team as they were last season. So they would be my number one. Arsenal would be my number two because I just can't imagine them being a championship club. I mean, maybe I can a little bit more now that they're a set-piece FC. But everything about that club feels like very modern and very elite level. Like the playing surface is the best and costs like $5 million, or like the Adidas merchandise releases that they have every few weeks, or like the fan TV channels that they have. I think it would be a complete culture shock them being in the Champo, and also North London Forever is horrifically cringe, and I'm sorry, Arsenal fans, that's just how I feel about that pre-match song. Number three would be Tottenham for me, because I actually feel like, and this might happen, I feel like a season in the Championship might help them reset, and they might have like a bit more fun in the Champo and win more games. Hopefully, they better win more games in the Champo, and so I kind of want that for their fans right now, because that story, I don't know, I just find the Spurs thing a bit depressing. I'm a bit bored of Spurs being rubbish, just like manager to manager.
Have they thought about just not being rubbish anymore?
Yeah, that's something.
For your sake, Graham, if for nothing else.
For my
right?
sake, yeah, for my sake. But they're my number three. Man City are my number four because their Puma kits deserve to be in the Championship. I'd actually have them lower than the Championship if I could, because those are some League Two ass kits if I've ever seen them. And number five would be Chelsea. Couldn't really come up with a reason for Chelsea. I guess I'll borrow Joe's reasoning. Like, they're chaotic, they're fun to talk about, let's keep them up for a while longer. And then number six would be Liverpool as well, similar to Joe, because they're just like consistently the most entertaining team of the traditional big six. Like, obviously Man City are entertaining, but you know, my personal preference is more kind of like Klopp heavy metal football over Pep tiki-taka. I know that's a very macro reading of how those two teams play, considering one of those guys isn't even at Liverpool anymore. But nonetheless, they're just I've enjoyed watching them the most of the big six teams over the last few years.
I like both of your rankings. I'm going to go with Joe's interpretation as being the correct one. I've redone mine. City number one, because why not? I also think what Graham said about, like, was it Tottenham you were saying, like, they could do with a season down and then they kind of come back lean and hungry? I feel like especially a City relegated by like a points deduction just destroys the Championship and comes back with like they win like 5 titles in a row.
Well, it's the Juve thing, right? It's the Calciopoli thing. Yes, Juve come back and just win 10 in a row. You'll never do that again.
I want to pause though to say, like, I feel like the Championship has big giant defenders that will just like body people. I wonder if Erling Haaland just gets knocked around even more than he already does in the Championship. I hear your point all the same, Joe. He probably scores 1,000 goals.
Or he loves it down there. He's like, my people.
That's exactly. I'm home. City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, Villa. I'm not putting Manchester United anywhere near the top of that list. Villa don't deserve to be near the top of that list. What have they done other than punch above their weight and be plucky and upstarts at time? And then I agree with you all. Liverpool, I think, are really entertaining, really fun. I have a lot of friends who are Liverpool supporters, and they would be sad as well if they got relegated. So that is the gist of my list. I get through mine very quickly because I ask you both, did you all see, there was like very briefly, maybe a week or two ago, there seemed to be this like, not even theory, just like, hey, what happens when City get that 60-point deduction they're going to get? And it was sort of discussed. I can't even remember the number of points, but it was like being discussed as like, we all know that's coming. The season relegation like level of point deduction. And it seemed to come and go very quickly. Did either of you catch that dialogue as it happened? Or am I
did
completely
not.
Okay.
No.
Because there was a moment I was like, does somebody know something? Is that happening? Is there going to be an actual verdict? Will there be a points deduction? But it seems like maybe that was just speculation that caught fire, because once every 3 months we're reminded that that is ongoing and could be a possibility, though it seems very unlikely. So I'm glad that we're all in agreement that it was Man City near the top of our list, at the top of our list, and no other team. Don't fact check that. Let's take one more break while I recover from the betrayal of my co-hosts, and we'll come back to answer 2 more listener questions. Welcome back, everybody. We go to Jameson for the next one. I think most listeners would agree Thomas Muller should be a manager. 5 years from now, assume Thomas Muller is managing a mid-table team in the Bundesliga. Tough downfall for Bayern Munich. Who are the 3 MLS players that Muller will play with or against that he would immediately bring into his team?
Oof.
I loved this question. Even if it's very tricky, it makes us presuppose a lot of things. And I ultimately went the cowardly route of I am very glad I'm hosting because I can just pass the ball to Joe. Because every single one of mine, like, is it Ralph Priso and Bonge? Is that how I say his name?
Yeah, Ralph Priso, I think
Ralph
is
Priso.
usually what I call him anyway.
Cool.
Maybe that's wrong.
Like, he's young. And I was like, maybe, like, that's one where he'll be good enough. But then I was like, Joe's going to know, like, actually, they don't communicate well. Or, like, he doesn't pass the ball enough well for Thomas Muller. So I feel like all of my answers are going to pale in comparison to Joe's. So with that established, Graham, I'd love to hear your answers first.
Well, Berhalter
Sandbagging
is
you
obviously
completely. Yep.
top of the list because
Yep.
they seem like buddies. Wah! Berhalter! And I
Yep.
cannot shake that. It's one of my favourite things that I've seen for a long time. Sebastian Berhalter will be 29 in
Yep.
5 years' time. Am I the only one that was surprised he's 24? I didn't think he was older by any stretch, but I would have placed him like 26. So that fact made it a little bit
Had
easier
you
to
have
pick
listened
Sebastian.
to last week's Young American segment, you would have known that I
Well,
put
here's
that
the
in
thing. When you did say Sebastian Berhalter, I was like, oh, we're just choosing our own route here, just choosing our own path through the game. And so I was a little bit confused by that. That now makes a lot more sense. 24, he's younger than I thought he was. So yeah, that feels like it will be his peak years. I'm obviously kind of joking with the Sebastian Berhalter pick, but also
not.
Like, feels like, yeah, Berhalter in the Bundesliga, he's handled every step over the last 2 seasons, like step up over the last couple of years. Kind of feels like he should be aiming to play in a Big 5 league in Europe, and he'll be 29 in 5 years' time. So let's continue that bromance.
Yeah. I went the other way with it as well, Graham, that, like, let's say this season goes really, really well and he gets a move at the end of it to maybe like a bigger Bundesliga club, maybe a Premier League team, maybe whatever. Like, and then he has 3 good years there, but is maybe getting a little bit older at that point. I almost wondered if, like, at 29, is that the, like, oh yeah, I'll go play for Thomas for like 3 years in the Bundesliga and just kind of make some money and have some fun. Like, he could even be at that point in his career, assuming that Sebastian Berhalter is allowed to have fun and not just play perfect passes and be very serious / lifting up Thomas Muller. Who else did you have, Graham?
So I had David Martinez. He's going with him to the Bundesliga as well. He'll be 25 in 5 years' time. He's finally putting it together for LAFC. I caught a bit of your guys' conversation on the Tuesday MLS show. He has been one of the most exciting players that I've watched in the first few matches of this season. And I feel like Muller, you look at his, maybe not so much at Vancouver, but at Bayern Munich, he always played with exceptional, like, wide forwards, /wingers. You know, Ribery, Robin, Michael Elise, Latterley, Gnabry. So I'm saying David Martinez is going to follow him to the Bundesliga. And then my final pick, and this is where I'm going to pass the mic to Joe after this, because I couldn't think of the perfect player in MLS, but I was trying to think of like a Raumdeuter, like an MLS Raumdeuter. And the best this is by no means a perfect comparison because they play the game very differently. But the best I could come up with was Diego Rossi in terms of, like, is he a winger? Is he a number 10? Is he a second striker? Is he a centre forward? He's kind of none of the above. He's just like an all-round attacker. Now, obviously, Diego Rossi plays very differently to Thomas Muller. And also, he will be, I believe, 32 in 5 years' time, so it would be a very late career move to the Bundesliga. But I did wonder if Joe had a more kind of like Muller-coded player that he could point to for me.
I love the shout. The one, actually, that I came up with, Graham, that I didn't even think about in this way is Ani Valakari for San Diego FC. He's very much not one of San Diego's most talked about players. He's really good, and he plays as the most advanced of a midfield trio. Really, in possession, it's a lot of like a double pivot of Tverskov and Godoy, and then Valakari's kind of floating up in the left half space, which feels quite Muller-y. And he puts up numbers, man. Like, I think he had close to double-digit goal contributions last year. Maybe he did have that. I don't have the numbers in front of me. And he'll do the same this year. He's an every-game starter for them, and he is very, very good. He is a name that I wouldn't be shocked to end up in a Big 5 sort of European league, although maybe this Bundesliga level will be a little bit too much for him. But he's probably about the right age, and I could see that working. So he's not at the top of my list, but that's a good shout, Graham, that profile of player. I think if Taylor Fine may be allowed to speak now, which, I mean, I think Graham did a great job. And I think you know more than you give yourself credit for, Taylor. So I liked hearing your guys' thoughts. Berhalter's on my list. I have it down in all caps with a question mark and an exclamation point to mimic the Thomas Muller voice. The other teammate of his in Vancouver that I had down was not Ralph Priso, though his emergence at center back has been amazing. Kind of think he might be too short to play center back, at a really, really high level. The other player is Kenji Cabrera. Who's that? Everybody asked. Well, he's a Peruvian U22 player that Vancouver brought in last year, and he's amazing, man. He doesn't get talked about very much because he's not playing a key role for them just yet, but he is very, very good. He's young enough to basically in 5 years be kind of hitting the prime of his career. I really, really like him, so I'll just bookmark that name now. In terms of players that he has played against or will play against, and I went through and looked at all these teams. So some players that are good are missing because they're not going to get the Thomas Muller experience this season, and they didn't get it at the end of last season. But the other players I have on my list, Manu Dua for San Diego.
Yes.
He is the best young center back MLS has ever seen. I think it's a little close maybe with him and someone like Mamadou Fall, who ended up going to La Liga, and it just didn't work out. Injuries and other chaos kind of happening over there. But Dua is an amazing prospect. He's been lights out for San Diego this year. He was that last year. He's going to make San Diego a lot of money, and I think he could be playing in the Bundesliga by the end of the summer. So he's somebody that totally belongs on the list. Xavier Gozo, I have down on my list. He's young enough to be hitting his stride in 5 years' time. He's going to be moving to Europe soon, so that one's on the table. And then the other one I have down is Nectarios Triantis, who, Graham, I know we share an affinity for. He's already kind of dabbled a little bit in Europe, which I think maybe makes him more attractive to a team in the Bundesliga if he was to get a move. I wrote for Backheel last week that he is Premier League ready now. I really, truly believe that. I think he is ready now for the best league in the world. Not to be a player on a Big Six, although relegation-bound, Big Six team, but I think to be a player for a mid-table Bundesliga team, I think you could drop him in a Premier League lineup tomorrow, and he wouldn't be the best player on the field by any means. He might be the worst player on the field, but he's not really going to be losing you a bunch of games. Physically, he's amazing. He's certainly ready for the Bundesliga in that regard, if that's what we're talking about. And on the ball, he's getting better and better, and he's already perfectly fine. So I have a ton of Triantis stock, so whether it's him or Gozo or Martinez or Dua, and probably less so the other players that I mentioned. But those guys are the ones that I think have some of the highest potential to play at a really, really big level in the next 5 years.
Triantis is younger than I thought he was.
Yeah, how old is he, Graham?
He's 22. Just did a quick Google of him. He's someone I'm very familiar with. Had a loan spell at Hibs and was brilliant for Hibs. He plays with the physicality and I guess like the authority of someone who's a lot older than that. So kind of surprised he's that young.
Yeah, he's amazing.
See, I think this question is really tricky for a lot of different reasons, some of which we've already gone into, but also just that it's a mid-table Bundesliga club that Thomas Muller is managing 5 years from now. Because if you had made it just like Bayern Munich, it gets a little bit easier because some of the guys you all are talking about, if they're like the best defender in MLS ever, or like this guy has next level ability, he could go into a Premier League team right now. I'm like, should he be with a mid-table Bundesliga team 5 years from now? Like, do we want the best like up-and-coming player who could go score goals for like Chelsea or Real Madrid to be at like Union Berlin 5 years from now? I don't know.
Well,
do I want them at Hamburg next season or 5 years from now? I don't know.
You make a good point, Taylor. The counterpoint is all of the good, like promising young players that have ever come through MLS, one of them has played for a Bayern Munich level team, and that is Alphonso Davies, who plays for Bayern Munich. Like, odds are these players just are not going to hit that height, because to hit that height, you have to be one of the 180, 80 best players on the planet, and the odds are that these players will not be that.
I was going to say counterpoint, 100% of players who've tried to do it have done it, but I feel like there might be. Like Justin Shea was with Bayern Munich
Chris
briefly.
Richards, Justin Shea. The list goes on.
Both the Tillmans, maybe? Although
but they didn't come through MLS. But yes, point stands.
All right, fine. Well, Thomas Muller, the coach, is going to be very fun, and I'm very excited to see who his Christian Roldan will be. Yes?
Can I say, I'm a bit torn. I need you guys' opinion on this. My first thought, when Jameson said, I think most would agree that Thomas Muller should be a manager, was, no, I don't want that. I want him to be a pundit. But then my second thought was that would his charm get grating after a while? Through no fault of his own, but do I want like 2 hours of that every week? Or do I want a 60-second snippet of a press conference that goes viral like once a month? Maybe that is what I want. So maybe the manager thing is the right take.
I know exactly what I want Thomas Muller to do
Go on.
retirement, and I think I might have said it on the show before. He
F1
should be an
driver.
actor, and I'm not even kidding. Like, the guy has genuine acting chops. I can't remember, was it the Germany national team the new kit that they had. They had a video that Thomas Muller was in, and he was genuinely very funny in it. He also does stuff for classic football shirts where he has to act with the Ellis Platten, that's his name, from Away Days. He's genuinely very funny. So I want him to go down that route. If anyone can do a Vinnie Jones in a very different way to Vinnie Jones, it's Thomas Muller.
I think whatever he does. Horse racing, F1 driver, actor, coach, pundit, maybe all of them. He's the new Lutz Pfannenstiel. Let's make it happen.
You don't want to be Lutz Pfannenstiel. He's about to be fired from Aberdeen any day now.
Hey, okay, never mind. Not that. One final question. I like this one as well. From Rito. What is the highest level of competition a team entirely composed of DeMarcus Beasleys and Weston McKennies could beat? I always enjoy this type of question, and I think I'm more bullish than my co-hosts are going to be because
I have no idea how to answer this. This might be the toughest question I've ever had on a Listener Questions episode.
Joe, where are you on ease of answering this one? Graham says it's the toughest thing ever. I rubbed my hands gleefully when I saw it.
I think I have a good answer that I feel confident in if we can give them an average goalkeeper. That's a huge
problem. The problem.
So I went down two paths. One is with a goalkeeper.
In goal, man. He's not letting anything in.
If McKennie is in goal, they're losing to a USL team. If it's like a real goalkeeper, then we can have a different conversation.
I feel like it might be even it might be even lower than that in my opinion. If McKennie or Beasley's in goal, I feel like you're maybe losing to like a good semi-pro team. They just shoot from anywhere.
What about like that the clip when Rooney goes in goal and is like lights out? I think that might be a Nike ad, so there might be. I was going to say, is that a commercial?
I don't know, man. I think
is that the one he's living in a caravan?
Are you arguing that goalkeepers like don't matter very much? What? I don't understand your argument.
I refuse to be painted into this corner. No, it's not that they don't matter that much. It's like I think if you have a team where they don't have to if they don't have to be like the end-all be-all of your team, I think you can make up for deficiencies in goalkeeping. It can be hard. Manchester United found that out with Andre Onana, but there's ways around it.
They found it out with a professional goalkeeper who had played in a Champions League final.
Yeah, Weston McKennie.
Right.
He is the goalkeeper for Manchester United now, Joe. I don't know where you've been. All right, so fine. Maybe they get a year of goalkeeper training. How about that?
No.
Still no? All right.
Still no.
Well, I think you're both insane, and I think Serie A is a lock.
Can we do okay? Graham, for you and me at least, let's give him a goalkeeper. Just generic, average, like Big Five league-esque sort of goalkeeper. How does that? Where do you rate this team if they have that as the backstop?
I mean, I don't know if there's a good answer to this question, but instinctively,
they win Serie A easily.
Instinctively, I still think like bottom end of MLS. Like there's no real defensive instincts. A whole team of Wes McKennie and DeMarcus Beasley.
I think that's too low.
The left back, centre back, right back, midfield, attacking midfield, wingers, and forward. I'm only allowed to pick from those two players. Yeah. So neither of those two players are instinctive goal scorers, and neither of them have like natural defensive instincts. I guess Beasley does to a certain extent, but nonetheless was still like an attack-minded player.
It's Champions League semi-finalist DeMarcus Beasley. Thank you very much. I think it might have been quarters. I'm not sure.
Good, excellent players, and like you could have picked two, or Rido could have picked two. Players that I think would be lower than my ultimate answer with Weston McKennie and DeMarcus Beasley. But I still think like actually building a functional team with only those two players is going to be almost impossible. So I had them like not the worst MLS team, but probably still missing out on the playoffs was where I had them.
I think that's too low. And the reason I think that is Weston McKennie is an above average. Like Weston McKennie is a DP level MLS player. At least a few different positions, right? And I think DeMarcus Beasley in his prime is the same. I think he's a well above average MLS starter at a number of positions. Yes, there are holes, but MLS teams have holes anyway, although fewer and fewer of them as teams build better and better rosters. But like if you look at Miami right now, Miami have a lot of talent, and certainly they have more talented players than McKennie or Beasley even in their prime, right? But they have holes. Like Maxi Falcone, you're telling me you'd rather have Maxi Falcone starting at center back over Weston McKennie? Absolutely not. You're telling me you'd rather have Noah Allen or Facundo Mura playing fullback than DeMarcus Beasley or Weston McKennie? You'd rather have Yannick Bright in midfield next to DePaul than Weston McKennie? No. And my point is, there are holes in these teams as they stand now, and there will be holes in this team. So I think they would do very well in MLS. I thought about this as what team would they be favored to beat? Like, who would the odds makers favor them to beat? Because I think you could put this team up with a real goalkeeper against a Champions League level team, and they're winning like 2 out of 100 times. Because that's how soccer works. It's the low scoring game, high variance. So I wanted to think about which team would they be favored to beat. And my answer, and this could be a little high, Graham, you've swayed me a little bit. I think this team would be favored to beat a lower mid-table team, like I'm thinking 13th or so, in Spain or Germany or Italy. That's what I think. I think McKennie, if you put him in a bunch of different spots, and Beasley, you put him on the outside, although I do have my 11, which I'd love to share, but I've been talking for a long time. I think those players would be favored in a game against a mediocre to bad team in a non-Premier League Big Four league.
Joe, when you say you've got your 11...
Yeah, I built it. Can I say it?
Oh, but there's just 2 players to pick from.
Taylor, do you have your 11?
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, go ahead.
McKennie, Beasley, McKennie.
No. I
McKennie,
have it with
McKennie,
positions.
McKennie, Beasley, McKennie.
Okay, let me do my 11 for real. I think this is great. I can't believe you guys didn't build 11s. I thought we
I
always
did.
built
I
11s.
was just told you it.
There's only 2 players to pick
I just
from.
told
Okay, here
you
we
a
go.
4-2-3-1
Oh,
with a
fair enough.
goalkeeper.
All right, I'm gonna say the positions next to it so the audience can understand what's happening. Center back, Weston McKennie.
Of course.
I can't believe we're doing this.
Center. No, I'm being serious. I need
back,
you guys to tell me if I'm
Weston McKennie.
missing something up.
Here's the other centre back.
Weston
Weston
McKennie.
McKennie.
All right, okay.
Right back is
DeMarcus Beasley, DeMarcus Beasley.
no. Right back is Weston
Okay.
McKennie. I want a right footer on that side.
right.
Left back is DeMarcus Beasley.
Of course.
My midfield 3 is it's all Weston McKennie.
I had McKennie, Beasley. I had Beasley as my 10.
I just don't think Beasley's got it to be a 10 personally.
Yeah.
But my
I
wingers
just
are
needed more Beasley in there.
no. I only have
being
3
honest.
Beasleys. So my wingers are DeMarcus Beasley and DeMarcus Beasley.
Okay.
And my striker is Weston McKennie. I'm being serious. I think this is the best way to set up this team. Maybe listeners disagree, but I think I'm right on the money here. I could see Beasley as a 9 working against certain teams, but in general, I default to McKennie there. I think this team would be really fun. I think it could be decent. They're not going to win anything, but I don't think they're getting relegated either.
I think McKennie works as a 9 if you have like other players surrounding him who can like knife
You
into
don't.
the box.
He's still
Yeah,
scoring
Beasley.
goals.
Beasley's quick.
Come on.
He can get in behind. I think the front 3 actually works okay.
Graham, I'm taking away your honorary American citizenship right now. That's where we're at. Like, and
It's the
you
centre
can
back
think about
one
that.
that's most. The centre back one is most concerning to me. I agreed with.
I feel like
with
you said
every.
4 different positions are the most concerning to you. at
No.
this point.
I said it's scoring goals and keeping goals out. And fortunately for you guys, those 2 things are not important in soccer. So you're totally fine with your team of Weston
No,
McKennies. And,
they're very
and
important.
DeMarcus Beasley,
I just
yeah.
know that the beasts of McKennie and Beasley will have no problem scoring goals on any team.
When Joe was saying you would
for
rather
good
have X over West McKennie or Y over West McKennie, I agreed, with the exception of I think centre back. Like I probably would have Falcone over West McKennie as a centre back over a full season. Like I think West
So
McKennie,
Graham's
and
wrong.
like
Cool.
for one game,
Yeah,
you can draft West McKennie in there and he'll be fine. But over like a full season, I feel like the weaknesses and just the fact his game is not built for being a central defender, would be exposed.
Yeah, there would be some problems. And Graham, you sort of convinced me that maybe I should change it to this team would avoid relegation. In Serie A, we'll just continue to use Serie A since Taylor thinks they're going to win it. I don't think they would be relegated. I'll just put it there. I think they'd be decent. They'd be okay. They'd survive.
Okay.
I'm a little annoyed by the way you two have answered this. Like, this is ridiculous. They would win Serie A. Get out of here, both of you. I need someone to make
just
this
to be
happen.
clear, you're joking, Taylor, right? Okay.
I mean,
we're on the same page.
The actual Serie A team that has Weston McKennie
Is
and
like not going to win Serie A.
not going to win Serie A.
Because he's their best player.
Right.
But you add all of him around him.
Good
We
point.
all dream of
Serie
a
A.
team of
You're
West
welcome.
McKennie.
There is something to be said. Taylor, I'm a bit surprised you didn't go this way in arguing for this team to do better. There's something to be said for the chemistry component of this, right? Like, what if you have 8 Weston McKennies on the field, 7 Weston
I've been
McKennies on the
shut out
field?
by your nerd brains. Otherwise, I would have brought that up.
They're going to be like perfectly in sync at a level that I don't think anybody else can manage, unless it's like a Calvin and Hobbes situation and the clone
like a
of
hive
the
mind.
original Weston McKennie, like he gets upset and it just doesn't work out. There's a lot. I don't know. Maybe that's a possibility.
What was that Apple TV show that everyone watched recently where everyone had to say, I've forgotten the name I watched. it.
MLS season pass. Right?
Yeah, that's the one, Joe. Correct.
F1.
Yeah.
Everyone's watched one. Right?
Great question. This makes me so happy.
See, here, I think I do think that Graham's hatred of America is to be factored in here. Because, Graham, if I made this Andy Robertson and Scott McTominay. See,
Scott McTominay-
I can already see.
No,
you
but
wanna
hold
put
on,
them higher.
hold on a second here.
I can
Scott
already see you wanna
McTominay
put them
literally
high.
played at a major tournament at centre back for Scotland. So I think my answer is still broadly no. But McTominay, maybe I would trust him a little bit more in central defence.
This is
See?
interesting
Do you
because
see? Do you see?
I think it's possible that team does worse than this. I think it's close. I mean, Robertson, I think, is a better player than Beasley and McTominay and McKennie. McTominay's maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, they're both
I don't know. I'm not totally sure.
They
but
are.
Robertson, I don't think of as being quite as dangerous like vertically as Beasley, even though he's clearly a better player. He's played at a higher level.
He also can't play in. He's only played one position his entire career.
Yeah,
So
I didn't have another one because you guys don't have any good people.
Good
true.
one. That's a great pairing though, Taylor. We should do that sometime. Like we got to come up with the best all-time lineup that we could think of with two players. Like who is that team? I don't know.
My all-time answer to this for if you could have one player play every position, who would it be? Is prime Arturo Vidal. That man does every single position and wins the World Cup. In your face, both of you.
I'd rather have McKennie.
Dion
See?
Dublin. He played centre back and centre forward.
Who is that? Graham?
We usually don't agree on
Great
winners
question.
when it comes to listener questions, but
Taylor
I'm going
won.
to announce that you both lost and I won.
Congrats,
Yes.
man.
So-
It's deserved.
My true answer was Serie A. I think they've got that sorted. I still think the Bundesliga and a somewhat weak Bayern year might be
no
able
way.
to happen. But I don't think you can get past Bayern or Real Madrid or Barcelona in La Liga. Or
I did not realize you did your listener questions and answers while under the influence, Taylor. That is now I know. Now
I
we're all on the same
sometimes do,
page.
but not this time. This time,
I
it
do
was
not
all
believe you.
Sober thinking, full hearts, clear eyes, can't lose. Right? That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
On a show that I've never watched before. All right, Graham Ruthven, thanks for being wrong today.
Thank you, Taylor Rockwell. It was
Joe Lowery,
Pluribus.
the same.
Pluribus was the show I was thinking of. That was the one.
Yes.
I'm going to let that sit. Joe Lowery, thank you for not mentioning Pluribus before the end of this episode.
Yeah, wasn't in my bag. Didn't have it,
I'm going to assume Ryan Bailey agreed with me about Weston McKennie and DeMarcus Beasley.
He
two
did
players
not.
he definitely loves and cherishes. So Ryan, points to you. Listeners, points to you all for obviously nodding along to my outrage at Joe and Graham's blasphemy and slander together is what I think that was. It's fun to host and just have the mic at the end to be able to say whatever I want. Gentlemen, thank you again. Listeners, thank you again. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy your weekends. Bye-bye.